My first day as a 6th grade substitute teacher, I walked into class and saw every student wearing sunglasses. When I asked why, they said, "My first day as a 6th grade substitute teacher, I walked into class and saw every student wearing sunglasses." When I asked why, they said it was Sunglasses Day for Spirit Week. 23 kids, all wearing different styles of sunglasses indoors, sitting perfectly still at their desks like they were waiting for something. I'm Katie, and I'd been subbing for 3 years, but I'd never seen a Spirit Day quite like this. I checked the school calendar on the wall, nothing about Spirit Week. I asked if they had a flyer or announcement about it. A girl in the front row named Madison said the principal had announced it yesterday over the intercom. But here's what bothered me. The regular teacher, Mrs. Chen, had left detailed lesson plans on her desk. 3 pages of instructions, attendance sheets, emergency procedures, not a single mention of Spirit Week or sunglasses. I told the class they could keep them on for now and started taking attendance. That's when I noticed everyone kept glancing at the back corner of the room. Not obvious stares, just these quick looks every few seconds. Always the same corner, near the supply cabinet. I looked back there myself, but saw nothing unusual. Just shelves of textbooks and art supplies. The morning went by slowly. Every time I turned to write on the board, I'd hear whispering. When I'd turn around, everyone was silent, eyes forward, sunglasses hiding their expressions. During independent reading time, a boy named Lucas raised his hand and asked if he could use the bathroom. When I said yes, 3 other kids immediately said they needed to go too. Explained they'd have to wait their turn, and I saw Madison elbow the kid next to her. They exchanged looks I couldn't read because of those sunglasses, and then they all put their hands down. Nobody asked to leave the room again after that. At lunch, I stayed in the classroom to eat my sandwich while the kids went to the cafeteria. I walked around the room looking at their desks. Several students had written notes on scraps of paper and left them half hidden under their textbooks. I picked one up. It said, "Don't look directly at it." Another said, "Keep the lights on." A third said, "She didn't know, and that's why." My hands started shaking. I looked at the back corner again. Really looked this time, studying every detail. The supply cabinet door was slightly open. Had it been open this morning? I walked over to close it properly and noticed scratch marks on the inside of the door. Deep gouges in the wood, like someone had been trying to claw their way out. I pulled the door open wider and saw the cabinet was empty, except for one thing, a pair of sunglasses sitting on the bottom shelf. They looked expensive, adult-sized, with a name written on the inside of the arm, Mrs. Chen. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the lesson plans from the desk and looked at the handwriting more carefully. The letters were shaky, uneven, like someone had written them in a hurry or while scared. At the bottom of the last page, in tiny letters I'd missed before, it said, "They're trying to protect you. Listen to them." The students came back from lunch and filed into the room silently. They all still had their sunglasses on. Madison walked up to my desk and set down a folded piece of paper. "Don't read it until after school," she whispered. "Please." I opened it anyway. Inside, in careful handwriting, it said, "Mrs. Chen took her sunglasses off on Thursday. We told her not to. She looked at the ceiling tiles for too long. Now she's in the hospital and can't stop screaming." That's when I realized what they'd all been avoiding looking at this whole time. The rest of the story is on my channel or linked below. I slowly look up at the ceiling tiles, my heart pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. At first, I see nothing unusual, just standard white acoustic panels with tiny holes, the kind you'd find in any school. But then, movement. Subtle at first, like a ripple across water. The tiny holes in the tiles begin to swirl, creating bizarre patterns that pulse with unnatural rhythm. I blink hard, thinking my eyes are playing tricks on me. But when I look again, the movement is more pronounced. The patterns are growing, expanding across the tiles like living ink stains, reaching toward each other from panel to panel. I can't tear my eyes away, even as my stomach twists with instinctive dread. "Miss Katie!" Madison's voice breaks through my trance. She's standing beside my desk, holding out her sunglasses. "Put these on, please, right now." My hands shake as I take them from her. The moment I slide them onto my face, the classroom erupts in frantic whispers. 23 voices all at once, relief evident in their tone. Did she see it? How long was she looking? Is she okay? Through Madison's lenses, the ceiling appears completely normal. Flat, motionless panels. No swirling patterns, no movement whatsoever. I take the glasses off for a split second. The writhing patterns immediately reappear, then quickly put them back on. What is that?" I whisper, my voice barely audible. Madison steps closer, speaking low enough that only I can hear. "We don't know exactly, but it started 2 weeks ago, right after they replaced some of the old ceiling tiles." She glances nervously toward the door. "At first, we thought we were all hallucinating. Then Mrs. Chen saw it too." I pick up Mrs. Chen's sunglasses from the supply cabinet where I found them. Now that I'm looking more carefully, I notice one lens has a hairline crack running through it. This is why she's in the hospital, isn't it? I ask, examining the damaged glasses. She could still see, whatever that is, through the cracked lens. Madison nods. "She started screaming during silent reading. Said things were crawling out of the ceiling and into her head. They had to call an ambulance." I stand up, addressing the entire class. "Everyone listen carefully. Keep your sunglasses on at all times. Do not take them off for any reason while you're in this room." My teacher voice is steadier than I feel. "Madison, I need you to tell me everything you know about this." The students visibly relax at my instructions, as if relieved an adult is finally taking this seriously. Madison sits on the edge of my desk. We discovered it by accident during art class. Jaden knocked the light fixture with his project, and we all looked up at the same time. She shivers at the memory. Mrs. Chen didn't believe us at first, thought we were playing a prank, but then she saw it too and got us all sunglasses the next day. "But why sunglasses?" I ask. "They block whatever signal it uses," she explains. "Regular glasses don't work. Lucas tried his reading glasses and still saw everything, but sunglasses, especially polarized ones, block it completely." Lucas raises his hand. "My older sister works at the mall sunglasses kiosk. She got us all different different pairs after what happened to Mr. Delaney. Mr. Delaney, the science teacher? I remember seeing his name on the absent list in the main office. Several students nod grimly. He was the first, Madison continues, then Miss Patel from the library, then Mrs. Chen. All of them took off their glasses, or didn't have them. They all stared at the ceiling for too long. And they're all in the hospital now? I ask, trying to process this information. Yes. The official story is they had nervous breakdowns from work stress, Madison says with obvious skepticism. But we know better. I walk to the windows, keeping my gaze level, and pull the blinds closed. The classroom darkens, but not enough to hide the ceiling. Has anyone told Principal Barnes about this? I ask. The collective eye roll from 23 students tells me everything before Madison even speaks. Every day for 2 weeks. He says we're making it up for attention. Says there's nothing wrong with the ceiling tiles, that we're being dramatic middle schoolers. Her voice drops to a whisper. But we've seen him wearing sunglasses in his office, and he never ever looks up anymore. I grab my phone and take a quick photo of the ceiling, then look at the screen. The image shows normal tiles, no movement, no patterns. It doesn't show up in pictures, Madison explains. We tried that already. My mind races through options. Call the police? They'd think I was crazy. School board? They'd defer to the principal. Parents? According to Madison, most think their kids are participating in some elaborate prank or social media challenge. Has anyone tried to, I don't know, test this thing? Figure out what it wants or how it works? I ask. The classroom goes silent. Finally, a boy in the back raises his hand. Tyler did, he says quietly. He stared at it on purpose for 5 minutes straight, said he wanted to communicate with it. What happened to him? I ask, though I'm afraid I already know. He's not in school anymore, Madison answers. His parents transferred him to private school after he spent a week in the psychiatric ward. He kept saying the ceiling was talking to him, telling him to do things. I walk to the door and check that it's locked, then return to my desk. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to continue with our normal lessons, but we're going to document everything. I want each of you to write down when you first noticed this, what you've observed, and any patterns you've noticed about when it's most active. The students exchange glances, then begin pulling out notebooks. Miss Katie? Madison asks. What happens after school? We can't stay here forever. I hadn't thought that far ahead. The idea of walking out into the hallway, where I might encounter Principal Barnes or other faculty who might be compromised, sends a chill down my spine. One problem at a time, I tell her, trying to sound more confident than I feel. For now, we document everything and keep our glasses on, and we figure out what happened to Mrs. Chen's glasses. And the baki was animos to the clo. And dear tel be internal docuas and reanence. I hold up the sunglasses with the cracked lens. Oh, someone or something broke these on purpose, I say. And I think Principal Barnes knows a lot more than he's telling us. The final bell rings, and 23 pairs of eyes look to me for direction. Nobody moves to pack up their things. What do we do now? Lucas asks, adjusting his neon green sunglasses. We can't just stay here forever. I glance at the clock. 3:15 p.m. The school day is officially over, but the thought of walking out into those hallways makes my skin crawl. What if there are more of it, whatever those things are? Beyond this classroom, give me a minute to think, I say, trying to sound calmer than I feel. I pull out my phone and dial Principal Barnes' office. His secretary answers with practiced cheerfulness. Hi, this is Katie, the substitute in Mrs. Chen's class. I need to speak with Principal Barnes immediately. It's an emergency. After a moment of hold music, Barnes' voice comes through the line. Miss Walsh, what seems to be the problem? His tone is clipped, impatient. Sir, there's something seriously wrong with the ceiling in room 217. The students have told me about teachers being hospitalized, and I've seen it myself. I need to evacuate this classroom immediately and call in experts to place a C. Not this nonsense again. Bing, he interrupts. I've had enough of this mass hysteria. Those children have created an elaborate prank, and I'm disappointed you're playing along instead of maintaining order. This isn't a prank. I insist. I saw it with my own eyes. The ceiling tiles are moving. Something's living in them. Barnes sighs heavily. Miss Walsh, I expected better from you. These children have clearly manipulated you into participating in their little game. I suggest you dismiss your class and report to my office immediately for a discussion about professional boundaries. He hangs up before I can respond. I stare at my phone in disbelief. He didn't believe you, did he? Madison asks, though it's not really a question. I shake my head. No, he thinks we're all making it up. Told you, Lucas mutters. The classroom door opens suddenly, making us all jump. A man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair enters, pushing a cleaning cart. He's wearing mirrored aviator sunglasses, despite being indoors. The janitor's name tag reads, Hector. He looks around at all of us in our various sunglasses, then directly at me. Without a word, he closes the door behind him and locks it. You've seen it too, he whispers, his voice barely audible. All of you. The students visibly relax at the sight of his aviators. Madison waves at him. Hi, Mr. Hector. Hi, Miss. Hector nods back, then turns to me. You're the substitute for Mrs. Chen? Yes, I confirm. Katie Walsh, can you tell me what's going on here? He pushes his cart to the corner and pulls a folded stack of papers from his pocket. It started last month, after the ceiling renovation. They replaced all the tiles in the east wing. Said it was for better acoustics, but he trails off, glancing nervously at the ceiling through his dark lenses. The company that did the work, Nexus Interiors, they finished the job in half the time it should have taken. Cut corners, used materials that weren't in the contract. He unfolds the papers, revealing maintenance logs with dates and notes. Look at these reports. Water damage in places that were bone dry, electrical failures with no explanation. And this, he points to an entry from 3 weeks ago. Missing persons report. 2 of my night shift crew disappeared during their rounds. Police found nothing. School said they just quit without notice. I scan the documents, my stomach nodding as I read. What happened to them? They were checking the new ceiling panels, Hector says, tapping another entry. Security footage shows them entering the east corridor at 11:42 p.m. They never came out. The cameras in that section mysteriously malfunctioned for exactly 17 minutes. When they came back online, my guys were gone. Madison steps forward. Mr. Hector, tell her about the basement. Hector hesitates, looking at the students. You all should go home. It's not safe. They already know. No, I interrupt. They've been dealing with this for weeks. Tell me about the basement. He sighs, removing a small ring of keys from his belt. This school was built in 1962, but there's a sublevel that doesn't appear on any official blueprints. Storage rooms, old boiler systems, and something else. Something that was sealed off decades ago. What do you mean something else? I ask. Government facility of some kind. There are warning signs in faded yellow, heavy doors with multiple locks. I've worked here 20 years and never went past those doors until last month. He swallows hard. The renovation crew broke through one of the sealed areas while running new electrical conduits. Whatever was contained down there, I think it escaped. Madison tugs at my sleeve. My brother Jake was on that crew, she says quietly. He came home one night with the worst headache. Said he saw something move in the darkness when they opened up the wall. The next morning, he wouldn't speak, just stared at the ceiling for hours. He's been in the hospital ever since. My heart sinks. That's why you knew about the sunglasses. She nods. Jake texted me that night. Just said, don't look up, wear sunglasses. It was the last thing he sent before. She trails off, blinking back tears. Hector spreads more papers on my desk, blueprints, incident reports, and a list of names. 23 students in this class, he says, tapping the list. 23 pairs of sunglasses, 23 previous victims who didn't have protection. A chill runs through me. The sunglasses belong to people who looked up for too long, he confirms. The glasses were collected from their desks, lockers, cars. The students figured it out before anyone else did. His were anyone else. No, we had to, Lucas adds. Adults weren't listening. Suddenly, the classroom door handle jiggles. We all freeze. Then comes the sound of keys in the lock. The door swings open to reveal Principal Barnes standing in the doorway, his face unnaturally calm. Mr. Alvarez, Barnes says, addressing Hector, I believe you're needed in the gymnasium. There's been an incident with the water fountains. Hector doesn't move. I'm finishing up in here first, sir. Barnes steps into the room, closing the door behind him. Something about his movement seems wrong, too fluid, too precise. His eyes scan the room, lingering on the maintenance log spread across my desk. What interesting reading material, he says, his voice oddly flat. But I'm afraid those documents are school property and not meant for public consumption. He moves toward Hector with surprising speed. Before anyone can react, Barnes reaches out and snatches the aviators from Hector's face. You won't be needing these anymore, Barnes says with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. After all, there's nothing wrong with looking up once in a while. Hector's exposed eyes immediately dart to the ceiling. His body goes rigid, mouth opening in a silent scream. Hector's body begins to convulse violently. He drops to his knees, eyes rolling back until only the whites are visible. Foam bubbles from the corners of his mouth as his fingers claw at the air. The maintenance logs scatter across the floor like dead leaves. Several students scream. Lucas jumps up to help, but I grab his arm. Don't look up, I shout. Everyone keep your glasses on. Principal Barnes steps over Hector's twitching body with casual indifference, like he's merely navigating around a puddle on the sidewalk. His smile stretches unnaturally wide, and I notice with horror that his pupils are expanding, black pools consuming his irises, until his eyes look like empty voids. They only want to show you beautiful things, Barnes says, his voice oddly melodic, almost hypnotic. Why resist? Why hide behind those ridiculous glasses when there's so much wonder waiting above you? He takes another step toward us, and I make a split-second decision. Everyone out now, I yell, grabbing Madison's arm. Science lab, go! The students scramble for the door, keeping their heads down. I position myself between them and Barnes, backing toward the exit while never taking my eyes off him. He doesn't rush, just continues his slow, deliberate approach. You can't hide from them forever, Miss Walsh, he says, tilting his head at an impossible angle. They're already inside this building, inside the walls, inside the floors. I back into the hallway, pulling the last student through the door before slamming it shut. Barnes's face appears in the small window, those black eyes staring through the glass. Run, I shout, and we sprint down the corridor toward the science lab. The hallway feels endless, fluorescent lights flickering overhead. I force myself not to look up, even as I catch glimpses of movement in my peripheral vision. Dark shapes writhing across the ceiling tiles, following us like predators stalking prey. We reach the science lab and pile inside. I slam the door shut and engage the deadbolt. Thank God for proper lab safety protocols. The room is windowless except for a small reinforced panel in the door, which I quickly cover with a lab coat. Everyone okay? I ask, scanning the group. All 23 students nod, adjusting their sunglasses with shaking hands. What about Mr. Hector? A small voice asks from the back. I don't have an answer that won't terrify them more. We'll get help for him as soon as we can, I say, hoping it's not a lie. Madison is already moving around the lab, gathering supplies. We need to barricade the door, she says with surprising calmness. They'll be coming for us. They? I ask. Barnes isn't the only one, Lucas explains, helping Madison push a heavy lab table against the door. Most of the administrative staff stopped wearing sunglasses last week. The school secretary, the guidance counselor, the vice principal, they all smile too much now. I help them secure the barricade, then turn to face the group. Okay, we need information. What exactly do we know about these things? Madison reaches into her backpack and pulls out a small velvet pouch. She empties it onto a lab table, 23 pairs of sunglasses, each one different. These belong to them, she says quietly. The ones who looked up for too long. I pick up a pair of bright yellow frames. Who did these belong to? Tyler Johnson, 7th grade. He was the first student. Madison's voice is flat, clinical, like she's distanced herself from the horror. After he was taken to the hospital, I found these in his locker. I thought maybe we could protect others. I examined the collection, reality sinking in. 23 pairs, 23 victims. We've been collecting them, Lucas adds. Every time someone changes, we find their glasses and give them to someone who needs protection. The implications hit me like a physical blow. How many people in this school have been affected? At least 30 teachers and staff, Madison says. Maybe 50 students. It's spreading faster now. I move to the supply cabinet, searching for anything that might help us. We need to find a way to contact the outside world. Does anyone have cell service? The students check their phones, shaking their heads. No signal. They're jamming communications, Lucas says. It started yesterday. yesterday. No calls in or out. As I rummage through the cabinet, my hand brushes against something unexpected. A leather-bound notebook wedged behind boxes of microscope slides. I pull it out and recognize the handwriting immediately from the lesson plans I was given this morning. This is Mrs. Chen's, I say, flipping through pages of meticulous notes and diagrams. She was researching whatever these things are. The students gather around as I spread the notebook open on a clean lab table. Mrs. Chen's handwriting grows increasingly erratic as the pages progress, but her observations are detailed and methodical. Look at this, I say, pointing to a diagram of the ceiling tile structure. She identified the pattern of movement. It's not random, it's a feeding cycle. Madison leans closer. Feeding on what? I turn the page and feel my stomach drop. Visual connection, I read aloud. The entity requires direct eye contact to establish a parasitic link with the host's visual cortex. Initial exposure creates hallucinations that compel the host to maintain eye contact, allowing deeper neural infiltration. Lucas shivers visibly. It's eating their brains through their eyes? Not exactly. I continue reading. It's replacing reality with its own version. Gains. The longer someone stares, the more it rewrites their perception until they can't distinguish between what's real and what's Topka implanted. I flip to the final pages, where Mrs. Chen's writing becomes almost illegible. The words press so hard into the paper that some pages are torn. The basement, I read. Government research facility, project ceiling, containment breach. See Eiling? Madison asks. Cognitive enhancement and integrated linguistic integration network generator. I translate from Mrs. Chen's notes. They were experimenting with perception alteration in the 1,970 seconds, creating entities that could modify human consciousness through visual stimuli. They made these things on purpose? Lucas sounds incredulous. And kept them here under a middle school, I add, still reading. The facility was abandoned and sealed after an incident in 1978. Whatever they created was supposed to remain contained forever. A loud bang against the door makes us all jump, then another, and another. I peek through a tiny gap in the lab coat covering the door window. Barnes stands in the hallway, but he's not alone. At least a dozen teachers and older students have joined him, all with the same vacant black eyes. They're taking turns throwing themselves against the door, their movements synchronized and mechanical. They're trying to break in, I whisper. We need a plan. Madison is already at the back of the lab, pulling open a storage closet. Mrs. Chen showed me something once, she says, when we were doing the light refraction unit. She emerges holding a dusty cardboard box labeled Demonstration Materials 1960 seconds. Inside are dozens of small hand mirrors, the kind used for old optics experiments. The school used to have an annual science fair where they'd create Hall of Mirrors exhibits, Madison explains. Mrs. Chen said these were left over from back then. I stare at the mirrors, remembering something from Mrs. Chen's notes. Visual connection, I murmur. These things feed on direct eye contact. Lucas catches on immediately. What if we make them look at themselves? The pounding on the door grows more intense. The barricade won't hold much longer. Exactly, I say, grabbing mirrors and handing them out. If these entities need eye contact to establish a connection, then we force them to connect with themselves, Madison finishes. We quickly formulate a plan, positioning mirrors strategically around the lab. The banging on the door has become a constant, rhythmic assault. The wood is starting to splinter. Everyone ready? I ask, gripping my mirror tightly. 23 faces look back at me, terrified but determined, each holding a small mirror like a shield. Remember, I say as the door begins to give way. Whatever happens, don't look up. Keep your glasses on and use the mirrors exactly like we practiced. The barricade shifts as the door frame starts to crack. They're coming through, Madison whispers. I take a deep breath and position my mirror. Then let's show them what they really are. The mirrors feel cold in my hands as I position them strategically around the lab. 23 students follow my lead, their faces tense with concentration behind their sunglasses. The pounding at the door has become rhythmic, almost hypnotic, like the entities are trying to lull us into a false sense of security before they break through. Remember, I whisper as the wood splinters further. When they come in, aim the mirrors at their eyes, not at the ceiling. Force them to see themselves. Madison stands at my side, her hand trembling but determined. What if it doesn't work? It will, I say with more confidence than I feel. Mrs. Chen's research was thorough. These things need a visual connection to feed. If we redirect that connection back at them, the door explodes inward, pieces of wood flying across the room. Our barricade of tables topples like dominoes. Principal Barnes steps through the wreckage first, his movements unnaturally fluid, like a marionette controlled by invisible strings. Behind him, a procession of teachers and older students file in, all with the same vacant black eyes. Now, I shout, raising my mirror. 24 mirrors flash in unison, catching the fluorescent light and redirecting it toward our attackers. For a moment, nothing happens. Barnes continues his advance, that horrible smile stretching across his face. Then he sees himself in my mirror. The effect is immediate and horrifying. His body goes rigid, his mouth opening in a silent scream as the blackness in his eyes seems to swirl and churn like oil in water. The other infected people freeze in similar positions, caught in their own reflections from the students' mirrors. A high-pitched whine fills the air, building in intensity until it becomes almost unbearable. I grit my teeth and hold my position, keeping the mirror steady despite the pain in my ears. Don't drop your mirrors, I yell over the noise. Keep them looking at themselves. The ceiling tiles begin to vibrate. Fine dust rains down as the whining sound reaches a crescendo. Then, like a scene from a nightmare, dark shapes begin to detach from the infected people's eyes, writhing smoke-like tendrils that stretch upward toward the ceiling. Barnes collapses to his knees, his body convulsing as a thick, inky substance pours from his eyes, nose, and mouth. The same is happening to all the others, the parasitic connections severing as the entities are pulled back into the ceiling tiles. The shrieking is deafening now, not coming from the humans, but from whatever is being forced back into containment. The ceiling tiles bulge and pulse as if struggling to contain something massive, trying to break free. Keep holding, I shout as several students begin to to lower their mirrors, terrified by what they're witnessing. We're winning! With one final ear-splitting shriek, the last of the dark matter disappears into the ceiling. The tiles settle back into place, once again appearing normal and innocuous. The infected people, including Barnes, lie unconscious on the floor, their bodies occasionally twitching. For several seconds, nobody moves. We stand frozen in a tableau of mirrors and sunglasses, afraid that lowering our defenses might trigger another attack. Is it over? Lucas finally whispers. Before I can answer, sirens wail in the distance, growing louder by the second. Someone called for help, Madison says, lowering her mirror slowly. I shake my head. Not someone. Something. I point to Mrs. Chen's notebook, still open on the lab table. She wrote about fail-safes built into the containment system. If the entities are forced back into containment, it automatically triggers an emergency response. Within minutes, the school is swarming with emergency personnel. Paramedics rush to attend to Barnes and the others while police officers secure the building. But they're not alone. Men and women in hazmat suits with no identifying markings methodically move through the hallways, carrying equipment I've never seen before. One of them enters the lab, his face obscured behind a reflective visor. Everyone remain calm, he announces in a voice that sounds deliberately modulated. This is a hazardous material situation. A gas leak has caused mass hallucinations throughout the building. Gas leak? Lucas scoffs. That's what you're going with? A hazmat figure ignores him, instead addressing me directly. You're the substitute teacher, Miss Walsh? I nod, still clutching my mirror. Please gather your students for evacuation. Medical teams will assess everyone for exposure. Exposure to what? I challenge. The truth, or his visor reveals nothing, but his posture stiffens. Ma'am, this is a classified situation. Cooperation is mandatory. Over the next few hours, they separate us, interviewing each student individually while confiscating phones, notebooks, and most importantly, Mrs. Chen's research. I watch helplessly as they bag everything as evidence, knowing we'll never see any of it again. 3 days later, the official story dominates local news. A faulty HVAC system leaked hallucinogenic compounds into the school's air supply, causing mass delusions among students and staff. Anyone claiming otherwise is suffering from exposure after effects. I visit Mrs. Chen in the hospital a week after the incident. To my surprise, she's awake and lucid, sitting up in bed reading a magazine. You remember everything, don't you? I ask after the nurse leaves us alone. She sets down her magazine, eyes clear behind new prescription sunglasses. Every detail, she confirms. They tried to convince me it was all hallucinations from a gas leak. Did you believe them? A small smile crosses her face as she reaches into her bedside drawer and pulls out a thumb drive. Not for a second. I made copies of everything. My research, the facility blueprints, maintenance logs. Hector helped me before. She trails off. Is he okay? I ask. Recovering, like the others. The parasitic connection was severed in time. She presses the thumb drive into my hand. Keep this safe. They'll try to make you doubt what you saw, but the truth is in here. 2 months later, I receive a letter offering me a substitute teaching position at Westlake Academy, 40 miles away. The contract includes an unusual dress code requirement. Teachers must wear appropriate eyewear at all times while on school premises. That same week, Madison texts me that her brother Jake is showing signs of improvement. He's speaking again, though he still won't look at ceilings without sunglasses. I accept the teaching position, but before my first day, I buy the darkest polarized sunglasses I can find. The thumb drive remains hidden in a secure location, its contents backed up in multiple places. Because some things are better left in the dark, but the truth about what happened at that school deserves to see the light.